starting with a quote. So today I have this one. I forgot who gave it to me, but I read it the other day, and it says, social media is not a medium. The key is to listen, engage, and build relationships. I think Jaclyn, CEO of JBaker Media, is the right person to do all of that for us today. So without further ado, Jacqueline, she's the CEO of JBaker Media. She believes that your company's online presence has never been more important than it is today, and I think that's absolutely true. It's 2024, and people still are trying to figure this out. She does stay on top of the ever-changing digital marketing landscapes to make sure your business is using the most current and effective methods to attract and engage your target audience. There are a number of platforms available in the social media world, and that's absolutely true, and they're keep growing. And what works for one does not work for another business. So that's why she does take the time to learn what's unique about every client's business, and I can vouch for that for sure, in order to determine the optimal social media program to maximize revenue. Jacqueline, thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
First thing I'd like to ask you is, we're here today, we're talking about JBaker Media and all the stuff that you do with social media. Can you share the journey of how you started and how you got today?
Yeah, I feel like it was kind of one of those quote unquote freak accidents, if you will. I did a social media program at Seneca, again, completely by accident. I probably applied for every program under the sun to see like what I would get into when I was applying for colleges. And the social media program just happened to be one of them. And I was going through my list, and then I thought to myself, okay, like social media seems like it could potentially be a good path for me. The program I took was just 1 year. So I was like, okay, if I love it, amazing, that's fabulous. But if not, it's just 1 year, and education is education. I did the program, I loved it, it was amazing. And I got a co-op right when I was about to graduate. And then when I did graduate, they said, you know what, just stick around, like you're doing well. I said, okay, that's great. Sure. But the hours weren't amazing. I think I was only working like 2 or 3 days a week. So I needed other things like, to do to fill my time. So I started, applying for, little, I guess you could say, freelance jobs online. And I was doing that for a good amount of time. And then I slowly kind of started building, my roster of freelance clients. I even got a client who worked in the same building that I was co-oping in, or I guess then I had the job at the time. So it was just, like such a small world. And I told myself like, okay, when I'm doing better on my own, like finance wise, than I am at my job that was like 2 or 3 days a week, I'm gonna go out on my own. And that happened pretty quickly. I'd say it happened within like a few months.
Mm-hmm.
So, I quit the job. I went on to the Google. I Googled like office space near me. I got myself a little office. It was, a co-working office, which was lovely. And I just started basically slowly growing the company. Fast forward, it's been around 8 years, which is crazy. I started super young. So yeah, no, I'm very happy with how everything worked out. It just goes to show I feel that like everything happens the way it's supposed to. Like I think when I applied to Seneca, I got into like 4 programs or 5 programs,
Wow.
and I just chose the social media one kind of like on a whim. So that's a little bit of a gist into the story.
Wow. So you're in it 8 years now, and
Yeah.
in the beginning there was a piece that you gave me that you said that you believe that the company's online presence has never been more important than it is today. Can you tell me, or can you walk me through your approach for content production and for social media that you take for your clients?
Yeah. When I'm chatting with new clients, I typically advise them that I feel like more often than not, their social media should kind of be like a cousin to their website. So
Mhm.
it's not like the exact same, but it's more or less like a similar gist. So that way, whether folks visit their website or their Instagram or their Facebook, in 2 seconds, they'll know, okay, this is exactly what I want. I'm going to make a purchase, or you know what, this isn't for me, and that's okay. A lot of content, like when I make for clients, I could easily, get my knowledge and education about the brand from the website and kind of like repurpose it into its own like unique and fun hack or tip or trick or what have you. But it's also a good place to share more like personal moments. So if you're doing like a conference, you're going to an event, or you're having like a team member's birthday lunch or something, like that could easily be a social media post.
Mhm.
But like a team member's birthday wouldn't be something you put on the website, if you will. So like each platform has its appropriate place.
And when you're saying it's like a cousin to the website, do you try to translate as much of the branding components to the social media presence as well?
100%. Yeah. I always say like, hey, if you have any like brand personas, hex codes, colors, fonts, all that kind of stuff, like send that my way at the very beginning. So that way I know what I'm working with and I'm not just going into, like my design tool and making photos that I'm nothing. I actually have something to work with.
Mhm.
Again, so that way whether folks visit the site or the social, in 2 seconds they'll know like, okay, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
And and you're absolutely right, because there's that correlation, the person will know exactly what they're looking for. And um, at least I'll speak for myself. I felt it was unprofessional to share those kind of background things that were happening to put them on social media. And I feel like there's a lot of businesses or entrepreneurs that feel the same. Um, how do we distinguish between what is all right? This is a fun moment or interesting thing to share, kind of behind the doors, and what is, what that you shouldn't post that on social media. It's good to kind of keep it within the team.
Yeah, like I feel like it's super personal preference for one. It also depends on like the brand and their style. Like I know some of my clients, they want to participate in like social media challenges. Like if there's like a trend going on, they want to participate. If it's like a funny TikTok skit or what have you, just because their brand is more like, I guess you could say laid back and casual and silly, that kind of thing. But if you're more like a strict, like B2B kind of vibe, you don't want to really participate in those challenges, for
Mhm.
example. You could do something a bit more low key, like celebrating a team member's like 5-year anniversary with the company.
Right.
And if
So,
they don't want to show their face in the post, that's also okay. You could just make a graphic that just says like, congrats, insert name here,
mm. And
or something in that kind of family. Yeah.
it feels like those are the mistakes that we would make, and that produce like a cringe moment. You're like, man, you shouldn't. Not everybody should follow those trends because it just doesn't resonate with the style or the brand or the business itself.
Yeah, like I'm just making up an example here. Like if you sell like bath products, and there's a challenge going around about like relaxation, like that would be super appropriate. But again, like that relaxation trend wouldn't be appropriate for someone who's in like transportation, just because it's not relevant. Yeah.
It's not relevant. I can see the patterns now. You also mentioned that there are a number of platforms, and like I said, I think they're like ever growing. And what works for one business may not necessarily work for the other. Um, Do you notice that specific social media platforms perform better for specific industries?
100%. It's not uncommon for me to start with a client sometimes, and they'll say, "Hey, we've been on these 5 platforms for like years, and we're super happy. We want to keep them all, so please let's do it." And I say, okay, like that's totally fine. If it's working, I'm all for that. But then a few months in, I'll look at the numbers and I'll actually realize, like, hey, Facebook is, 40% down compared to TikTok. And they might be like, oh, I never even noticed. Because like they never like fully like it's totally okay. It happens a lot. But like I do my analytics pretty closely. So I can notice like, okay, Facebook is again 30-40% down. Maybe this is a sign we should take a step back. Because I don't want you to have to pay for something that's not helping you.
Right. And you mentioned Facebook, and my experience as well is on Facebook, I do get a high engagement, but the reach is brutal, just atrocious. And
Yeah,
maybe it's
that's
my
an
style.
example. But yeah.
Maybe just my style, or the audience is not there. And I think that's absolutely right. Like some platforms just don't work. And Facebook for sure. It's one of those that I mean, I try, but I'm like, man, like the engagement is good, but the reach is like pretty bad now. On that note, um, have you noticed one social media platform or some that are outperforming in any industry when it comes to engagement and client acquisition?
Yeah, I feel like for the vast majority of my clients, they do the best on Instagram and LinkedIn. But that doesn't mean that's the same for everybody. I have one client, and they're only right now on LinkedIn and Facebook, and their Facebook is knocking it out of the park, and their LinkedIn is kind of so-so.
You mentioned Instagram, but
And
the
Instagram too, yeah.
yeah,
Instagram's great, yeah.
the word on the street is that Instagram is oversaturated. So if you are starting, is that true, or is that just what people are just saying on YouTube, that Instagram is oversaturated? Don't even do it.
It's a bit tough. Like if you're starting from absolutely zero, it could take you a little bit to kind of get like your feet in the door, if you will.
Mhm.
But typically once you hit like a pretty good milestone, like a couple hundred followers, then it's a bit easier to kind of work your way up. But typically the first couple hundred are the hardest to get unless you want to invest in ads.
Right. And that's a feasible way of doing it. Like you're paying ads to increase the followerships, and that then is the stepping stone to keep growing.
I mean, there's a few things you could do. You could do ads, you could collaborate with influencers, you could do a giveaway. Like there's a lot of things you could do, but you actually have to make the effort. You can't just like blindly post.
Right. Um, Blindly posting is not a. I've tried it. It's not a good idea. Just volume shooting volume. It's not working. Um,
Yeah.
but you did mention influencers, and I feel like that kind of disappeared over the years. It was a really important thing, and now it's kind of like disappearing. And do you feel that's because of how influencers do business, or there's not enough ways that we can structure this, the way that we buy ads, that we can do the same with influencers?
It's tricky because you have to be so careful when you are collaborating with an influencer that they're like a good fit for your brand and also that their followers are quote unquote real. Because back in the day, you couldn't buy followers. That wasn't a thing. So when you saw someone with 100,000 followers, you knew that they were all legitimate. But now anyone could just go into Google, type in buy followers. You can get 1,000 followers for like $20. So it's really not hard.
Okay. And
So you have to make sure you do your homework and make sure that they're a good, person to work with.
I'd like to go deeper on that. And I've heard that before, even for myself. Someone say you have to do your homework, and I've tried to kind of figure it out. Is there a way that someone can go on Instagram, type in whatever, and what was the process to find at least someone that is kind of real and like, okay, this potentially could be a working collaboration, so that you don't land on someone that bought a huge amount of the followers and nothing comes to fruition of that partnership.
Yeah, there's a lot of third-party tools out there nowadays that scout the influencers for you. So they'll give them like a score, like this influencer is a 9 out of 10, this influencer is a 2 out of 10, like based on just their engagement, their followers, etc. So it
Mhm.
gives you a little bit of peace of mind. Not all of them are very affordable, so just be mindful of that. But if it's in your budget, then it could be a good investment.
Right. And I feel like that's the best investment if you are going down the path to build influence relationships and you're clueless, you've never done this, at least pay the fee for the third party software, figure it out probably like 3 to 6 months. And eventually, if you feel confident to kind of do
And
it
you
on
can
your own,
figure it on your own.
got it. Got it.
Yeah.
It's very good. I've always, like I said, I always heard like do your research. I'm like, I'm doing the research. I just don't see the difference. um,
I know, I know.
Now, on a little bit on that subject, what I wanted to ask you was there's a lot of myths and a lot of fog around social media and the algorithms and all these things. Can you tell me what are like the three biggest myths that you keep hearing in 2024 about social media?
Oh, that's a really good question. I feel like one of them is like you have to do reels or else you won't be successful. I have a very healthy amount of clients who are like, you know what, reels are not for me. It's not my thing. I don't feel authentic. I don't want to do them. And I always will give you like, hey, this is my recommendation. But if you really don't want to do it, I'm not going to sit here and force you. And they still do absolutely fine and they're lovely and they're great.
Mhm.
Another one I feel is the amount of hashtags you have to use. I'm using a lot of client examples because I've had a lot of clients say like, hey, like if we don't use like these 4 hashtags every single time, like, is it true I'm gonna get shadow banned or whatever? Like, so I hear stuff like that a lot. Um, and again, I do personally feel like that's a myth. What's another myth? I'm not sure if this counts, but like that trends come and go. Because like I feel like there's some trends that are just like have stood the test of time. Like
Mhm.
I feel like Throwback Thursdays like are still a thing, even though like they were kind of, I guess you could say, invented like so many years ago. Like
Mhm.
I still do them for clients. I still see them when I scroll. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is great.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that counts. We'll say that counts.
I feel like it does, and I've heard the one with the reels as well. And um, like overall, I feel like it helps, but it hasn't been like the one thing that made or break. Um, But hashtags is something that I still feel like there's a lot of people, including myself, struggle with. How many do I include? Do I put them in the comment? Do they go in the first line? Do they go in the post? It's always kind of tricky to kind of navigate the hashtags, even though it's like something that is a core thing of these social
I
media platforms.
know. Yeah, because like they still work. Like I live in Toronto, so I constantly type in like Toronto business, Toronto food, like local Toronto, that kind of stuff. If I want to like do something new and I'm not sure where to start, and I'll just see what pops up, and then I'll just be like, okay, this looks good. I'm gonna go there.
Solid choice. They did a good social media platform. Okay.
That's what I do. Like when I look for restaurants and stuff, like when I
Just
see what looks nice.
look through the hashtags and do you go to see what people post, or do you kind of lean towards what the business posts when it comes to reviewing a business and kind of making a decision?
What do you mean exactly?
So for example, when we would pick a place for vacation, my wife never looks
Mm,
at what the resort posts. She always goes, joins all these groups and sees what people are posting that are actually there at this present.
mm. Oh, I do both.
Okay. So something to
Depends
keep.
how I feel and how like invested I am.
Okay. I have this one as a myth. Maybe you can shed some light. Um, Including a link from a different social media platform will reduce your reach on that one.
Ooh, that's a good question. I've had experiences both sides because I have done it just as experiments to see like what would happen. Sometimes the reach was not impacted in any way, shape, or form, and sometimes it significantly was. So it depends like how the algorithm like looks at your page, I feel.
Up with the algo gods on that one, I would say.
I
Um,
know.
now we
I've
talked
had
about,
like I have one page that I manage. They have around I think they have 4,000 followers, but the reach on their post isn't amazing. Um, on average, they get between like 100 to 400 impressions per post. There's another page I manage. They have around 600 followers, and their impressions are like 7, 8, 900.
wow. And in the two examples you gave, one includes links from other platforms and the other one doesn't, or they both do and doesn't really.
It's a bit of both. It depends on like what we're posting about at that time.
Got it. Got it. Now, speaking of posting social media content, all these things that are very, very important. In your mind, if someone wants to do this and tries to figure it out, how should the content production and social media management tech stack should look like for a small business to be successful in social media in 2024?
I feel like it's definitely a lot of looking at your analytics. So I think I gave this example a few minutes ago. Maybe I didn't, correct me. Um, like sometimes I'll have clients think that they're doing so incredibly amazing, and then I'll look at their stats and I'm like, you know what, this could be a little bit better. And I'm like, oh, okay, I just wasn't looking at it right because I didn't know how, or I was just under the assumption that I was doing it correctly. So like looking at your numbers really, really helps.
Looking at the and is there a set of tools that you're like these are can always recommend because they're the most accurate and they do help if you're trying to understand your analytics?
Yeah, Hootsuite is really great in my opinion. Later is good. Even like the actual analytics tools in the social media platform itself. Like
Hmm.
when you log into Instagram, you click the little insights button, like it's pretty accurate. So if you know how to work your way around that, I think it's pretty easy.
How do you feel about the argument? This might go back one question about the myth. How do you feel about the argument that
No worries.
if you manually post is better than using a scheduler to post?
Ooh, I do agree with that because I have done experiments over the years and even like recently, like the other day I was looking at some stats. And again I noticed that the posts that were posted manually did significantly better than the ones that were posted in later. And I was like, well, this is a sign.
New data, check mark. Okay, so posting manually does show better results. And so
More often than not.
more often than not.
Yeah.
And I've seen the same. That's why I'm asking because I think in the beginning, these social media platforms were, I mean, I don't use the word atrocious often, but they were for posting and for scheduling. It was brutal. It was horrible. It was really bad. And that's why social media management and schedulers were so popular. But now, when you look at meta business, that thing for scheduling is fantastic. Like I don't see a need to use a scheduler when I'm posting on Facebook and on Instagram. When it comes to YouTube, the analytics that are available in YouTube Studio is ridiculous. Before, none of that was there.
No, I
TikTok,
agree. Yeah.
TikTok opens a whole new section. Twitter now they're trying. even though it pops you to a different page, it is what it is, but still does kind of the job. But I've noticed like when I post manually, it does a little bit better. And on that one, here's
I
what
know.
I heard the other day, which was if you post, but if you don't engage, your reach and engagement will be impacted. And the reason behind that, apparently, this is a myth. Um, the social media platform sees that you are just posting, you're not really engaging, therefore, they will not reward you.
It's true. Typically, like within the first hour or so, if you could do it in the first 5 minutes, amazing. But if not, like it's cool. I'll go in and I'll just like and comment on a few pieces of content, and that's typically more than enough.
Okay, so you post, and then within the first 5 minutes or an hour, like, comment on several of your
Yeah, like 5 minutes to an hour. I know that's a big range, but
in business time, it's snapshot. So okay, that's very good. Um, I'll start practicing that because I heard it. I'm like, I don't know if it's true. I'm like, I really don't understand if that's true, but it did make sense. Um, top KPIs. When you talk about analytics, what are the top KPIs that we should look at, that you look at to say this is successful, this is not successful for your client?
yeah, so followers I feel like is the most, I guess you could say, requested stat that I get asked for. Like I'll start out with a client, they'll be at around 3,000 followers, and they'll almost always say, hey, in 6 months I want to be at 4, and then in a year I want to be at 5, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
It's very rare for a client to be like, hey, in 6 months I want my reach to increase by 50%. Like that's very rare. But I'll also get obviously like website traffic and conversions. I'll say, hey, I want to increase my website traffic by X% and my sales by X%.
So it would be followers, number one most requested, and probably the first KPI we should look at. Number two would be
Typically.
typically, and number two would be website traffic. Number three would be sales generated from social media and website traffic kind of combined.
Yeah, it's not always in that order, don't get me wrong, but more often than not, that's what I get asked.
Right. And I feel like that's kind of the stuff that I look at. And I've talked to a lot of people that are, I would say they're in it like in the short term. How can you give us an example? Like how hard is it? Let's paint it. How hard is it to actually get 1,000 followers in 6 months? If you kind of have some knowledge of social media.
Yeah, I'm very frank and very honest, very blunt. It depends how much of a budget you have. If a client is like, you know what, I have $50 to spend on ads, or I have $50 to spend on influencers, what have you, it's not going to get you very far. And I'm not going to lie and say it will. Typically in those scenarios, you have to be a bit more aggressive with your like time and energy like I put in. So that's going to cost more, like just for me working.
Yeah.
And then there's like, the ads, the influencers, etc.
Wow. Okay. It's true. It does take a lot of time, and that's why I wanted to kind of paint that picture because you do see those YouTube videos 0 to in 24 hours.
I know, because I watch those just to like educate myself on what's happening. Like I'll just watch them as background noise and I'm like cleaning and stuff. And a lot of it is kind of like fluff.
Not, yes, yes. And I've actually tried some the thing about those things that um there's no mechanism right now, but I've tried those things and I wish there was a way to like reply to say, what you suggested here actually does not work. I did step by step several of them, and what you're suggesting, man, is not really at all. Like it doesn't have any positive impact. Like you can't really do that right now. Now, when we're looking at the ever-changing new stuff and kind of educating ourselves on top of that, do you see AI helping you produce better content, or do you see AI kind of creating surface level and shallow content?
Mm. It's a bit of both because it's so easy. I feel to type into ChatGPT, hey, please make a social media post about a 50% off sale for like pink shoes. And then they'll give you a caption.
Mhm.
But you always, or most of the time, have to go in and kind of tweak it a little bit so it doesn't sound so like, not human.
Yeah.
Like you see all those words, it's like embark on this journey, impact on this journey, like that kind of stuff is very like ChatGPT-esque. So you
Yeah.
may just have to move some stuff around a little bit. But I do feel like it could help folks who may not be able to, afford like a full-time social media manager, but they just want a little bit of help.
Right. So it's a good way to start to see, and then as you're posting, you will start to pick up on those things, and basically prompt engineering becomes a new job.
Yeah, because like you could easily type in please make hashtags for a Toronto bakery, and then it'll give you a list of hashtags you could use. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. So aiding
Yeah.
and helping, but if you 100% rely on it, you will be surface level. It's not going to do as good as someone writing it manually with experience and knowledge in social.
Yeah. Or even like little things like you could say, hey, like please make an Instagram bio for XYZ business, and I could give you an Instagram bio. If like you don't know how to write one yourself and you don't want to hire someone, like $100, $200 to write one for you.
Right. And when you're looking at it from scalability, meaning I know that Canva now connects to ChatGPT and you can shoot out carousels like crazy. You can create the templates
Yeah.
and
I like
um,
Canva. Yeah.
so have you tried for scalability that type of automation and with AI and Canva, for example?
I haven't as of yet, just because I haven't had the need to for myself personally, but that doesn't mean I never will.
Um, it is a new space. The AI stuff is a new space now. Do you see that as a do you see that as a challenge, as a drawback, or do you see that something that is definitely helping when it comes to businesses, entrepreneurs to do better content for social media?
I think it could definitely help because even if AI continues to, explode, still feel like there will be folks who just don't know how to use it and they need someone like me to help them use it. Or like they do know how to use it, they just don't have the time or energy because they're doing other things, which is very fair.
It
There's
is
tons of
very
things that I can do. Like I had the time and the skill. I just know that my time would be better spent on other activities.
correct. And I've seen it when it comes to sales. The way that I see it for sales, it definitely helps me uh, in the way that it separates you from the competition really fast. Like I don't see I don't see AI still being used in sales. It's really generic. It's wizardry. Unleash, embark is one of those words.
Yeah.
Like never say that in an email or in a LinkedIn message. And I feel like it definitely helps me because it separates really fast. You see what is written with ChatGPT, an email, a message, and because sales is very like human, so you have to tweak it. You have to write the message as if you're writing for someone specific. And I even said like this is the style that I write. Right, you can make your own GPT and stuff like that. This is the style. Like it still is so wordy. It's logical, but I'm like I would never send this email to anybody because I just know that nothing's gonna happen. There's no conversation, no relationship building happening from that.
Totally. I know I feel you.
Um, when you look at Sora, what Sora is doing with video and AI, is that something that helps someone that is camera shy? Or do you feel like, just use stock video or don't use video at all?
Yeah, because I use so many personal examples, but I have a few clients who have come to me and they're like, I'm all for reels, but like I just don't want my face out there because, I respect my privacy or I'm shy or like I don't want my family to know, like that kind of thing. And I'm like, that is totally cool. Like there's nothing wrong with using third-party tools or stock video. Like we could experiment for a little bit, and if we do it for a month and we're not happy, we could stop. And if we are doing it for a month and we're super happy, we could elaborate.
Very easy approach when you put it that way. I think
Yeah.
I think we overthink it. At least for me, like I didn't want to do it for the longest time because I wanted to do it the right way. I've seen this is the feeling I had. If you have bad social media, it's way worse than having nothing, as opposed to last post 2018 and then I'm posting again 2023 and nothing. I felt like that would not be the right way. So I didn't do it because I wasn't ready. And another rule that I probably I'm not going to change for a long time is the family. That's something that you mentioned with your clients. I don't want to include my kids. There's nothing purposeful to include my kids. Like I could say that I'm a husband and all that stuff, but like including my kids and my wife in posts for work, it didn't feel right. So I kept
Yeah.
kind of posting stuff that is very different or work related, but also personal. But I'm like I don't feel the need to post pictures with my kids to say like that I don't need to prove it. Like it's real. Uh,
No,
so
I know. Totally. Yeah.
okay. Um, when you look at people like Gary Vee, he's always used in this kind of sphere. How do you feel about the advices he's giving for small businesses?
To be honest with you, I don't really keep up with him. He's like one of the creators or content creators. Like I just don't really read up on much.
And
Like
the
I
reason
read like his like Right Hook book. Like when did that come out?
that was many years ago, and the reason why I
Like
was asking is
10 years ago? Yeah.
many years, I don't know, maybe 10.
Maybe more. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why I was asking is I've had conversations with people that would listen to someone like Gary Vee and they would say, man, I tried. There's no way to imply that there's no way to apply these strategies, these methods. It feels like it's for a massive business, for a small, like take out your phone and post. Like it's not that simple because there's actually three people calling me right now. And if I don't close these deals, I don't know if I can make the team payments and the stuff like that. So do you feel the advices that are Gary Vee-esque or someone like that, are they really
Yeah. No, I
easy
know
to
what you mean. Yeah, because I do agree with you. Like a lot of the advice I'll give, like, or people like similar to him,
Mhm.
you'll need an insane budget or like a studio or what have you. And it's like that's not feasible for everyone. Like when I'm doing my research for like my own knowledge, I'll typically just go into YouTube and I'll type in how to do XYZ and I'll filter it by like that week. And I'll just watch whatever one comes on first. I don't look at how many people have watched it. I just look at the new ones. And more often than not, those new ones are just by like I guess you could say average Joes, I think is the expression,
Yeah,
where like they just give like real authentic tips, like, hey, this worked for me. And I'll try it and I'll see if it works for me too.
it's true. I've I think I've done that by mistake, not intentionally. Where I'm like, my feeling is that people that would post in this past week or something like that, they're more honest and authentic. They will actually tell you like, this is what I'm doing. Here it is because they want to increase their reach and engagement. They're very open and transparent, and they will show you the
Yeah.
good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's kind of what you're saying.
That's why I sort it by the newest, not by like the most views.
Right? That's a good tip. That's
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Now, um, we're coming close to the end. I have like two more questions left. And
Yeah,
this
no
one
rush.
is,
Yeah.
um, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs that are looking to grow their social media starting, let's say, this week?
Mm. I feel like there's a few things I would say. I would say like it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because likely at first it will not be, and that's something you have to accept. You're going to learn as things goes on. And if you post something and you don't like it 6 months from now, you could always delete it. But you still want to get to that point where you at least start. Um, and B, more isn't always better, especially at the beginning. Like I'd rather see someone new post once a week or even twice a month, to be completely honest with you, than post every day for a week or two and then get overwhelmed and stop.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah. And also look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. Like if you do a post and you notice it's significantly higher in reach compared to the other ones, like look at it and be like, did I do something different? Like, did I use different hashtags? Is the image higher quality? Is the caption shorter or longer? Or was it just one of those random flukes, if you will?
Yeah. Your advice is very raw, real, and simple because people will say, like, oh, you have to post every day, otherwise it's nothing. Well, it's
No,
also,
it's not true.
um,
Yeah.
so you're saying if as long as you're consistent, the consistency will over trump the frequency.
Yeah, like what I would do personally is I would make like a Google sheet or something along those lines and just put maybe like 7 or 10 captions and images in the sheet or whatever tool that makes most sense to you. And then just schedule them out once a week for like 2 months or something. Um, and then as you get more ideas, you can slowly add things in here and there. But that way, at least you know you're set for 2 months and you don't have to be nervous.
Yes, yes. The way that I did something similar when I started, I did for a quarter because that was like the easier way to kind of be prepared. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
no, that's fine as well. Yeah.
yeah, a quarter, and it was easy to wrap my head around that. And that's kind of how I started. And then eventually, piece by piece, I was like, okay, I'm kind of figuring this out. And I learned very
Totally.
fast that ChatGPT is not the solution, like exactly what you were saying. Um, but looking ahead, like looking to the future, what are your long-term goals with JBaker Media, and what are the steps you're taking right now to achieve those?
Yeah, like I'd of course love to grow the business, like get more clients, potentially offer more services. I never want to put myself under like a crunch, like, hey, you have to increase your sales by XYZ% every month, or else like everything's gonna be bad and no one's gonna like you, like all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of just like a stepping stone. It's like, okay, every month I just try to get a little bit better. And if I don't, that's okay. Let's just see what I can do the next month.
Got it. Step by step, incremental 1% wins. That's what matters.
Yeah, because like new things are constantly being invented. Like I didn't always do influencer marketing because that wasn't a thing.
Yeah,
But now that is something I do.
it's very true. Jacqueline, thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. You're honest, raw, very truthful. And I think the stuff, everything that you mentioned is actually something several of these things I'm going to start doing today. So appreciate a lot of the time you took to talk to me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.